And you'll notice that the trumpeter is the only one of the riders who is not wearing a scarlet uniform, because the trumpeter's coat, like with some drummers in the British Army infantry, the trumpeters wear inverted colours. So you notice that the tails and cuffs and saddle cloths of the dragoons are yellow, and so therefore is the coat of the trumpeter. So here they come, ladies and gentlemen, building up some speed, looking magnificent. Give them another cheer, especially for trumpeter Frank, who's having his first outing as the regiment's trumpeter today. As I said, the dragoons were technically mounted infantry in the 18th century. They were trained both to be foot soldiers if necessary and to fight on horse. But by the 1740s, it was much more common for these men to spend their time on the battlefield in the saddle. So they weren't full heavy cavalry. They would have carried muskets and pistols, but also, of course, the swords. So, ladies and gentlemen, these men would have been a significant advantage to General Cope on the battlefield. His 2 regiments, 300 men or so each, would have been a considerable, fearsome sight on the field. Now these troopers are going to come forward and demonstrate their martial prowess. You see the trumpeter coming up first, riding Neve. A good chance for you to admire the coat. The trumpeter was very important on the battlefield for relaying signals and orders. Just as you heard General Cope saying about the drummers. And here comes the officer, ladies and gentlemen, taking a swipe at that cabbage. And I think the cabbage just about made it through. These are aggressive Jacobite cabbages, ladies and gentlemen. So the dragoons are going to have another attempt at decapitating it. So here comes the next trooper. Give him an encouragement, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey.
And that is definitely an ex-cabbage. Well done to Trooper Stewart there. So these men would have trained during the summer months on their foot drills, and then in the winter months at their mounted drills. And these sabres that they're carrying, these swords, would have been particularly vicious and unpleasant if they'd managed to break through the Jacobite ranks. Here comes the next trooper. Give him a cheer, ladies and gentlemen. Encourage him along. And a backslash at that cabbage. I think it's going to have a nasty headache. The troopers would be hoping that the Jacobites, being irregular infantry, perhaps lacking discipline they might expect, would be easy pickings for their swords. And I think the officer is going to come back through. Here he goes, looking magnificent. That cabbage full of fear. And a slight graze, I think, might be the best that the cabbage can fear from that one. It's phenomenally difficult, ladies and gentlemen, to keep both horse and rider doing exactly what they need to do to strike such a small target at speed. And here comes Trooper Stewart. And that's a pretty decisive chop. Well done. The cabbage is having a particularly hard morning, but it's fighting on. And here we go, our next trooper going along. Let's see this last slice making it through. That's pretty clear, I think. Already wounded. The cabbage is now definitively, I think, defeated. Ladies and gentlemen, an encouraging cheer for all of the troopers. That's a tough exercise. Looking magnificent as well. Now next we have the mounted officer coming forwards with a pistol, ladies and gentlemen. And this is an even trickier thing to attempt to do at speed. These are flintlock pistols, just the same as those that the infantry were firing earlier. So they fire black powder sparked by a flint striking onto the steel. And of course there are so many things that can go wrong with such a weapon at the best of times, but at speed on horseback, riding one-handed, it's harder ever still. Here he comes, ladies and gentlemen, give him a cheer! And that would be the moment that the flint struck the steel. The problem, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is that the gunpowder in the pan of the pistol can easily be blown out or dropped whilst the rider's moving at such speed. And dragoons would be expecting to fire those pistols at relatively close range as they were coming into a formed body of men, adding to the disorder and the smoke and the confusion, creating spaces, weakening cohesion, ready for the men to come in on sword back, with the sword stroke. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I see the troopers are redrawing their swords. Of course, what every infantryman fears to see on the battlefield is a charge of horsemen coming towards them, the trumpet signalling, and here come the troopers with their swords up. Imagine 300 men of a regiment moving around in perfect synchronicity. And you can imagine the Jacobites, without any cavalry support, would have been particularly anxious to see the sheer numbers of cavalry that were facing against them. Now, the troopers are reforming at the far side of the arena and wheeling around, coming back towards us. Ladies and gentlemen, a charge of the horse! Give them a cheer, ladies and gentlemen. You don't get to see this every Saturday. 18th century cavalry at the charge, swords up, wheeling about, and imagine that, pounding the ground on the battlefields of 18th century Europe, and then the unexpected spectacle of such a thing happening right here on home territory. And of course, literally home territory. The senior officer present in the cavalry at Prestonpans was Colonel James Gardner, who was, in the most literal of senses, a local man, lived at Bankton House, just up the road from here, and leading his regiment, just as this officer today is doing with his troop. Ladies and gentlemen, give them a cheer! Yay! A really fantastic sight.
Force charge, very interesting.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, it is a rare sight these days to see British 18th century dragoons on the fields of Prestonpans. Imagine how much more so it was in 1745 when these troopers were here. Ladies and gentlemen, as they give you a passing salute, please give a very warm show of appreciation to the troopers of this fine regiment of dragoons, who will surely do sterling work later today, holding the flank of General Cope's forces.
See it little on, yeah.
I'm going to tell you what the answer was. The result was better.
No, who was against who?